Hey there, and welcome back into the Integrative Health Podcast. My name is Kari, and I am so excited to kick off a brand new series just about the conventional system versus the more integrative or functional medical approach. And I am excited to dig into this topic because I do feel like there are a lot of extremes in maybe both camps. And also, I come from a unique perspective, and like I know I'm not the only one, but just that works in the holistic space that does have a more conventional background, right? I worked in the pharmacy ever since I was 16. I went to pharmacy school, so I definitely have spent a lot of time in the more conventional health system. So I have that viewpoint, and now knowing and having to continue to learn and unlearn things that I, of course, learned in my time in the conventional system. It's been interesting, and it has definitely given me a good viewpoint, and one that has changed over the years, to be honest, because again, sometimes we fall into that more extreme type of thinking, extreme mentality. And I am definitely putting myself in that camp as well. But I do feel like I'm so gracious that the Lord has opened my eyes to some things and where I was probably a little bit too extreme in my thinking. And so I am definitely not too proud to say, hey, I am a continual work in progress. So no shame in any of these topics that we're going to talk about. I know that these things can get heated at times, right? But I guess with anything that I come to the podcast and chat about and topics that I bring up, I really just want to hopefully present these things in a simplified manner, in a manner that makes sense, that's straightforward, that there's not a lot of fluff with. Like, that's kind of what I want to do. And maybe even just put a rock in your shoe. Meaning, you don't have to agree with everything that I'm saying, but hey, maybe it might spark something that you needed to just think a little bit more about, look more into. That's really my goal with these topics that I bring up. So in this episode specifically, I want to talk about, like, why didn't my doctor tell me any of this? And I'm speaking more about, like, someone like I work with a lot of clients that obviously have went to their regular doctor. Maybe they have run labs, run different things, gotten checked out, and everything looks fine. I'm putting that in quotations if you're not watching or air quotes, if you're not watching the video version of this, if you're listening. They have been told that everything looks fine, but obviously they don't feel fine. And so maybe they do start their own journey of learning more, or maybe they do work with somebody like myself, and and it's kind of explained to them in a different way about why they're feeling the way that they're feeling, and they're like, oh my gosh, why didn't my doctor tell me this? Like, why? And so it can lead you to feel very misled, but I want you to just think about it in maybe a different way, because this is what I always try to remind people of. A traditionally trained doctor is not necessarily trained to look for the absolute root cause of what's going on. Like, really, doctors are sort of trying to do one of two things. They're looking for a diagnosis, and they're looking for a reason, a cause to give you a medication. That's typically what they are trained to look for. They are trying to look for what symptoms present in the way of this diagnosis. And really, it's not their fault, right? We can't blame them for the way that they were trained. And so I just think we, as the people, the patients that are going to see, conventional doctors or nurse practitioners or whatever it might be, if we're entering into the conventional system, we need to understand that's what they're trained to do. Now, you might be going because you just want to know what's going on, right? You do want a diagnosis. Maybe you do want some medication for some relief. There is nothing wrong with that. However, if you are looking to them to give you a root cause of why you're having these symptoms and why they are giving you this diagnosis, I'm just saying, I don't necessarily think that you're going to get that there. So that's, that's really why they don't tell you any of the backstory of all this, because they're not trained necessarily to look for those things. And also, of course, they just don't have the time to sit down and look at everything. First of all, like they are looking at snapshots. Maybe they're looking at blood work. Maybe you're telling them how you feel, but they're not necessarily asking a ton more questions to dig super deep to put the pieces together. It's a puzzle, guys. And I'm just saying, like, it takes me hours sometimes to sit and look and relook and pray and relook to try to see, like, what is this telling us, right? It's kind of like, sometimes it feels like a mystery. It's really not, but it does take time to look through all of the pieces of the puzzle. And so again, doctors just simply don't have time. The system is overrun. They just don't have the amount of time in their day that's needed to look into some of these things. Not that their heart wouldn't want to, but they're not trained like that, and they don't have enough time. And, the sad part about it is a lot of times looking to more of like looking at it from a root cause approach and looking to see, like, this is what I'm looking at. What's your diet like? How's your lifestyle? That could encompass a lot right there. Like, diet and lifestyle changes, they take time, they take intentionality, and they don't produce much income for somebody, right? They're not going to see a direct correlation. The medical system isn't, from you changing your diet and lifestyle. So there is a money aspect to this, and you guys know, if you're listening to this podcast, you get it. A lot of times the conventional healthcare system, unfortunately, I wish it didn't have to be like this, but we're just kind of there. Most of the time, these things are based on money, like what will insurance cover? Or, it really is kind of based on those types of things, that the decisions that the doctors have to make. And so that's really unfortunate, but that's just the truth of what you're going to get whenever you do go the conventional route. And so I just think it's really good and just kind of as a self-reflection thing to really not blame the system, because the system, again, I'm using air quotes, like the conventional system isn't set up for what you're asking of it. If you're really looking to see, like, how can I change what I'm doing? How can I, what are some things edits that I can make to what I'm doing? Maybe there's some supplements, but a lot of times it is diet and lifestyle changes that are going to make the biggest difference. Like, but I get that if I were to just tell you, okay, you need to get your sleep in check and your nutrition, and you need to make sure you're moving and getting outside in nature, like, those are a lot of the foundational things that make the biggest difference. But I also get sometimes those are really confusing topics, especially nutrition. Nutrition is something that we get very overwhelmed and stressed about. So I also get that if the doctor tells you, you just need to eat better, you just need to lose weight, you just need to do this, that can be really overwhelming in itself as well. And so, again, we're going to talk in future episodes in this series about what the flaws are in the holistic health world, because there are some for sure, and what the conventional system gets right. So this is only the beginning of this conversation. I'm excited, so excited to dive into this in future episodes. But I just think that oftentimes we try to blame the system for what we're not doing. And I don't mean that to sound ugly, but it's just the truth. Like, we, along with the Lord, of course, like we are in charge of our own health, right? We need to be taking and being proactive in our health. And I understand if you're doing all the things right, and you're like, I'm doing all those things, Kari. Okay, well, there's probably something that you're missing, and I get that's a thing. However, a lot of times we want a quick fix, and we're just wired that way because culture has told us in all these other ways, like we can get things super quickly. We can get our food quickly through drive-thrus. Like, it's just this quick fix mentality, but it's something that we have to take ownership and fight against. I constantly have to fight against immediate results, whether it's with myself or whether it's teaching my kids, that we can't always have instant results, because it is something that our world teaches us. It wants to teach us, let's say. But with our health, it is the long game approach. I get that if you eat healthy today, you might feel better. You might feel a little bit better, but it might not get rid of all that you have going on. But if you make better choices for 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, like, yeah, you're going to be making some real shifts in your health. But oftentimes there isn't that I'm going to do this and then in an hour later, I'm going to feel better, or the next day, or whatever. You understand what I'm saying. So I think there's a lot of that mentality that bleeds over into our health and a lot of other different areas in our life. But don't blame the conventional system for that. Because again, it's flawed. Oh yes, it is flawed, but it's not. We are the problem, because we are going to it wanting a quick fix. I think that is kind of, in my mind, how we sort of make a shift. And if we want to see real change in the conventional system, we would stop going to it wanting a quick fix. Like, we have created this because that's what we wanted. And so that's what they have given us. So I just think sometimes we can go in these extremes of, like, we just blame the conventional system, like, oh, it's just terrible and it just needs to, it needs a whole overhaul. Well, yeah, it probably does. But that starts with us. We have to demand better if we want better. And so, I get that the things that I mentioned, as far as like the basics, that we know how to take care of ourselves, as far as like getting good rest and nutrition and movement and being outside in nature, and like, getting out of that stress, go, go, go mentality. These things are so fundamental, but they are often overlooked. And as I said that list, you might be like, yeah, I've definitely heard that before, and I've done all those things. But have you long-term, or is it just here and there? Maybe. I just think sometimes we are so preoccupied just with, like, we have this, all these things going on in our life, and the things that I mentioned that are very basic and foundational, they just kind of get pushed to the side as like, that's boring. I want something a little bit more exciting. and really though, you're going to keep coming back to those things. And I think we all go through seasons, myself included, that I do get busier and some of these things do fall by the wayside. But hey, if we're feeling out of alignment with our body, if our body's feeling out of balance, we're having these different symptoms, we're feeling just run down, whatever it might be, we need to do a self-reflection and go back to those things, right? We need to see how we're doing in these areas. And if we've fallen down a little bit, hey, let's get, I don't want to say get back on the wagon by any means. No, I'm not talking about being on or off the wagon. I think a lot of people can think like that. I just mean, hey, what tweaks do you need to make? What do you might need to make a priority right now, that because you are busier, that you do need to spend a little bit more time, a little bit more time to get more sleep at night, or spend a little bit more time prepping some things so that you have them ready to go when you're rushing out the door. Like, I get I'm recording this podcast in May, and I mean, like, I am in the midst of, ending the school year and all that comes with that. If you're a mom, you get it. So yeah, I mean, I've had to prioritize that a little bit more, because I know I can show up for those that are around me if I am fueled well, and if I am doing my best to rest well at night, if I am moving my body. All of these things matter so much, but yet we just sometimes we want a quick fix, or sometimes we just think we need something else other than these basic things. And so self-inventory is super key when we start pointing the finger, because again, why didn't my doctor tell me any of this? It might not seem like a blame type question, but it kind of is. And I mean that with the best of intentions, just to help you to see, like, we can't blame anyone else for these things, right? This is our body. It's our health that we need to, be in tune with and take sort of ownership over. And if you're feeling really confused right now because you just don't know what to do, I would super encourage you to pray about it. And I know that might sound really cliche, but it's really not, because when we go to the Lord and we share our heart, He already knows that we're thinking these things. He already knows that we have these frustrations. He is just so ready to meet us where we are, and to give us peace where we are, and to guide us in the future. And so I would just really encourage you to pray about, what if you're kind of stuck in the middle, like, well, do I have this issue, but do I go to the conventional doctor, or do I try to find something more holistic or whatnot? It doesn't have to be one or the other. We're going to talk about that in a future episode. It doesn't. Sometimes it might be. I don't know. It doesn't have to be, though. I just want you to know that they can work very well together. I would, I would encourage you, if you feel like you need to go to the doctor to get checked out, go to the doctor and get checked out. But I just want you to know that if you want to get to the root of what's going on, you probably need to work with somebody that is going to look at what's going on from that lens and actually get to the root of the issue. Because it's just, you're not necessarily going to find that in the conventional world. But hopefully, if make sure you get the right doctor and the right more holistic practitioner to just to meet you where you are. And so sometimes it takes a little bit to find that, but it can be a really good combination to work together. So I hope this has been helpful. I really do. This episode comes from a really good place, from seeing things from a unique lens of, I've been in the conventional world and now I'm more so, I'll say live, in air quotes, in the holistic space. But I think that there are good and bad things about both. Neither one are perfect. And so praying about where we should go next is what I would encourage you to do, and to just have correct expectations whenever you do go into the conventional space. Know what you're there for, but know what they aren't going to give you. And so I think that really in itself would cause you to not have as much frustration with what you don't get from the conventional space. So I'm so excited about continuing this conversation in the next few episodes in this series. And so please join me next week and then the future weeks as I have conversations with different people. I'm going to have a couple of guests on that I'm really excited about. And I always love to continue this. So if you have thoughts or questions, you can always email me. My email is in the show notes. You can always DM me on Instagram. Those are two great ways that we can continue this conversation. But if you feel like somebody could benefit from this, please share this information out. Like, that is my heart. I really want to, again, just get this information out there just to help somebody where they are specifically. You just never know. This might be exactly what somebody needs to hear today, just to put them at ease, just to help them to take a deep breath and not feel so much stress over their health. So if you feel like, yes, I know somebody like that, please share this with them. And I pray that it does help and encourage them to, to take the next best step for them. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.